genre.
Welcome back to the Doctor's Companion presents Doctor Who, The Long Way Round, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Nick Jimenez.
I'm Scott Corelli.
And I'm Cass Fredrickson.
Today on the show, we'll be discussing The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon, the 11th Doctor's 12th story, and a pretty pivotal moment, at least for the three of us, in New Who history. Would you say, Scott?
I would say, for me, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Cass?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
So Impossible Astronaut, Day of the Moon, of course, written by showrunner Stephen Moffat and directed by Toby Haynes, ending the end-all be-all run of directed Doctor Who episodes that any one person directed in a row, starting with the Pandorica Opens, Big Bang, A Christmas Carol, and now this two-parter in a row. What a run! And he never came back to the show again. But why would you? Why would you ever want to ruin that? What a crazy run. So yeah, so this one is kind of interesting because this was the season where Moffat had established himself as the showrunner and had made the show a big hit, especially in America, but everywhere, but definitely America, and had decided that this season he wanted to really change things up because there had always been sort of a structure to a season of Doctor Who, and he wanted to kind of throw that out the window this season and really mess stuff up, and play around with the thing that wasn't broke. But he was like, I'm gonna fix it. And listeners, he did not. He broke it, as we'll get to, and this is the beginning of him breaking the show for a little bit. And sometimes, for some people, kind of broke it irreparably for so many, who just never came back to the show after having enough of him. But yeah, this all started here with this two-parter, with him being like, you know what? We've never started a season with a two-parter before. I'm going to do that. I want to start it with a two-parter, and I want it to be set in America, which we also don't do. I want to shoot it in America. I want to, so it was like this big deal, that this was happening. And, so he really wanted to mess with the structure of all of that. And, there was another thing that was going on because back in, May of 2010, when he was, even further back, but that was when he started writing these scripts. Back when he first took on the show, agreed to take on the show, there was that will he, won't he, element of David Tennant. And was David Tennant going to stick with the show? Was he going to stay on to the first season of Moffat's tenure as showrunner, or is he going to leave with Russell T Davies? And so Moffat had to pitch a storyline to David Tennant for this potential fifth season. And the storyline that he pitched to him was look, I know that you don't want to you're feeling long in the tooth. So but you're not sure if you're ready to leave yet, but you might be ready to leave yet. So this is the story that I've cooked up. So the idea would be the season would start with the reveal of you regenerating. And then the rest of the season would be about the events that led to you regenerating. It would be this whole stretched out thing that was sort of be like a love letter to your doctor and your tenure on the show and what you bring to the history of the show and all these things, while also solving the mystery of how you're going to regenerate. And while David Tennant ultimately decided to leave the show rather than stay on for Stephen Moffat's tenure, he always liked that idea. And so here, with this big 2-part episode set in America, he was like, I'm going to bring that story back. The problem is, he didn't know what the solution to the problem was. He just thought, well, I'll figure it out. And so he put a bunch of balls up in the air with the faith in himself that he would be able to successfully stick the landing. And that is what this is. So this is like, this story, as good as it is, it kind of represents Stephen Moffat going like full blown mystery box storytelling of like asking a bunch of questions he doesn't know the answers to. And just believing like, yeah, I mean, I'll find answers and they'll be good enough. And so I will say, rewatching this story, very different experience than the last time I watched it, because watching it this time, all I could think about was how all of this paid off in just like the shittiest way possible. And it was a little infuriating watching it this time. I'm not going to lie. And that was a real bummer, because this used to be one of my all-time favorites. And I've typically talked about the end of Day of the Moon specifically as like the sort of peak of Doctor Who for me, Doctor Who fandom, because I was like, oh my God, what does that mean? There's a regenerating girl in an alley. What the fuck is that? And I loved it. But watching it this time, I was just like, it's just fucking River. It's just stupid. Like she's not even a Time Lord. It's dumb. So yeah, and like the whole death thing just feels like now, because it's so like, oh, this is happening and what could it mean? I was like, nothing. He's a fucking robot. This is stupid. This sucks. He's not even regenerating. He's shooting fireworks outside of a robot. There's like little people in his fucking head piloting right now, hitting the fake regeneration button. This is so stupid. And that's all I could think about the whole time I was watching this. As good as like the setup is, the payoff is so astronomically bad. I had a real hard time watching it this time, unfortunately. I don't know if you guys had similar feelings. Before I go into the rest of the background stuff, I just wanted to get your thoughts on all of that.
I'm really glad you said that, actually, because I was worried that I was going to be like, yeah, this is fine. I honestly, I think I've like kind of this. Okay, so this story in particular like marks the point at which like Stephen Moffat for me goes from like the charming like kind of nostalgia of his era switches to annoying. Like I can see it happening, and like that's a bummer, because I like a lot of the stuff in this, but I was having a really hard time removing it from like the greater context of this season. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it has that vibe of like, oh, everyone loves everything that I do, so I can do anything and they'll love it. Like that's the vibe of this. What about you, Nick?
Yeah.
How'd you feel?
No. That's very well put. I think I agree with both of you, and I think you're making such good points. I think it's like it's such a fascinating episode to watch as a Whovian in our generation, because it's like, yeah, this represents the show at its most like rock star, confident.
Yeah.
We've never been more popular. We've never been cooler. So like we're back, baby, victory lap tour, and yet it is also, like Cass said, you're watching it fall apart in real time, more than we could have known at the time watching it.
Yeah.
Starting the episode with him being naked under a girl's dress, like, and you're just like, what the fuck is this?
Going from charming to annoying?
Yeah. Just, what are you doing?
I think I remember much less about the rest of this season, so I kind of was able to go into that like, oh, that's right, some of this was cool, and I do like these vibes and this. I think like the 11th Doctor himself, this episode is not as cool as it thinks it is, but occasionally it is kind of cool.
I think that like there is a intelligence in creating, like having the setting of 1969 and Nixon and all these things, and like these these creatures that can like that you don't remember, and the mystery of this death of the doctor's death, having that all mixed together, like this conspiracy stuff with like the 60s America stuff and Nixon, all of that. I'm just like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to like mix all that together.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's just the fact that none of it amounts to anything. And the Silents are just lackeys for an organization called the Silents.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's very unfortunate that it doesn't quite, and I'm glad that he eventually does that, honestly, because it's like, well, that's better than all of this shit. So it's like, ultimately, like, I don't mind like all of that, because I'm like, well, at least you figured out a way to stick the landing, even if it's not like the best way to do it. At least you did get to an ending where you're like, oh, he did tie everything up,
Mm-hmm.
It's not what I would have liked. It's not what I wanted, but it is, he did do it. But yeah, this is unfortunate, I think, in retrospect. It's one of those, that, yeah, the annoying stuff really does hamper it big time.
Mhm.
But man, the Silents as we know them at this point, impeccable vibes, in this story. I fucking love these guys. They are menacing. and I just love all the like forgetting as soon as you're not looking at them, even though it does set up more than a few gags that are a little too derivative of Buffy, season 5 of Buffy, with the what is his name? It's Glory and the guy that she also is,
Oh,
boy.
yeah.
that they all forget. Ben is Glory. Yeah.
Is that it?
It's like very derivative of that whole thing of like the gags, the who's on first of it all, Okay, so yeah, so and what do you guys think about that? Have you ever heard that being Moffat's pitch to David Tennant before?
No, I think that's really interesting though. I like the like the structure of that, like instead of I think it would have more impact too if like we hadn't just seen the 11th Doctor quote unquote die, in Big Bang. So
Right.
yeah. I like the idea of that a lot though.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, yeah, just reversing the like, oh, we have to wait until the end of the special for this, but we're going to give it to you, and then we're going to go all the way back.
Yeah. That is, I think, interesting. And it's funny that like that was the pitch, and it was like David Tennant like went back and he was like, you know what Moffat pitched to me? It was like that like you start with the regeneration, you show how you get there, and like, okay, well, let's not rip that off, but like let's strongly hint at like getting a lot of regeneration vibes right through these specials. It's like his whole specials are like haunted by like the inevitability of his regeneration. So, but it's just a very Russell T Davies version of it rather than like a timey-wimey Moffat-y version of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he did kind of end up doing similar things. But yeah, my biggest issue with him using it here is just like, if you have no intention of regenerating 11, then like don't do this now. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like there's no way to pay this off in a satisfying way. The reason it worked for 10 was because it was with the understanding that he was literally regenerating. Like, you weren't like fucking with the audience.
Right.
You promised them something and you delivered on it. And this, it's like, there was just no way out of this. He like wrote himself into a corner, like a locked room mystery or something.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're just like, I don't know how to get out of this and make it satisfying in any way. So I guess he's a robot with little people living in his head. What was that Eddie Murphy movie called? Meet Dave?
Yep.
Yeah. Getting real Meet Dave vibes from this.
Did not want to admit that I knew that. But yeah.
So anyway, let's see. This also features Mark Sheppard, of course. in this role, and he was like in the midst of shooting Supernatural, and so when they were like, "Hey, we're gonna have you play the older version of you too. We got this old age makeup and whatnot," and he's like, it would be cool if I could just like go and like film Supernatural. So why don't you hire my dad instead, and he can just play it, and you don't have to
Whoa,
do
that's
any
cool.
makeup. So like that's his dad playing him, and because I remember I was like watching this, I was like, God damn, that guy looks so much like Mark Shepard. This is the best casting I've ever seen for like an older version of a character. And then I found out it was his dad, and I was like, oh, okay, well, all right, fair enough.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but yeah, that was good shit. Yeah, that's there's not really like a lot going on with this. I've just got like a lot of like general, just like, they shot this here, they shot that there, they took Halloween off. That's fun. Good for them. But yeah, I mean, it was a thing where it's like this episode premiered to the highest numbers the show had ever had, and it was just like absolute, like as Nick put it, like this is the Rockstar era.
Mm-hmm.
And it went to their heads quickly. Because yeah, this season is there's a lot of good ones, and there's a lot of like all-timer bad ones. So this is gonna be an interesting run of the show, I would say. Yeah. So Nick, why don't you kick us off with is it you or is it Cass who's doing the recap?
I believe it's me.
Okay. So
yeah.
Where do we start?
so we start with this we start with this very silly montage of Eleven's misadventures. And there's like the painting thing, like hiding under the painter's skirts. There's like they're like in a bunk. He's like crawling through a bunker or whatever. And Amy and Rory. Amy is convinced that the doctor's trying to get their attention. It's been like 2 months, I think, since they've seen him. And they get like an invitation in the mail with a date and a time and coordinates, and they go to, is it Utah?
Mm-hmm. Utah.
That
whole thing with the doctor trying to get their attention was really frustrating to me, because I was just like, all I could think was like, how do you know it's him? Like, how do you know it's 11? Like,
right.
There's been a lot of these guys, like all through like time and space. Like, it could be any of them. Like, how do we know it's him?
That's a good point, because like in like silently, unspokenly, he is the most important doctor while this version of the show is going on.
Yeah,
and
right.
He's like the only version that exists throughout history. Certainly to Amy and Rory, like, oh, it's him, that Matt Smith doctor.
Yeah,
that we all know.
Yeah, I think that's another bit of like this era of the show that I think grades on people. It certainly grades on me, which is just like, yeah, it's not enough that he's the doctor currently. He also has to be the most important, greatest doctor that's ever lived, and no other doctor can ever compare.
Right.
It's just like,
and like all the words are capitalized. Like,
yeah.
Or even like, this a montage of like, him being really juvenile and acting really, I think we coined the phrase when we were doing this the first time around, the Cat in the Hat doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And whereas in Christmas Carol and The Big Bang, it was kind of charming and like, Marilyn, get your coat, it was like, oh, I like this. He's a bit of a cad, but it felt like they started with like, well, let's have him be really crazy and flailing his arms around, and then we'll backpedal and be like, he's trying to get their attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It all just feels like the sixth season, just in general, feels very first drafty to me. Like, most of these stories all just feel like he wrote one draft and then like another draft where he like just like took some things out or like, swapped things around, but didn't like improve anything at all. And so it just all feels like it feels a lot looser than last season. It's just like, you compare this to like Christmas Carol, and it's like, there is no comparison. Like, Christmas Carol was the peak of the show. Like, that was the end of it being the greatest show on television,
I think it's the thing that I found interesting rewatching this was I have a tendency with Moffat two-parters to really like the first part, and then like the second part is where I'm like, like, I mean, there's like exceptions, but generally, I find I like the first parts more than the second parts. But with
You
this
like the
one,
setup more than the payoff.
yeah, this one I thought was interesting because like I had no patience for Eleven's nonsense, like capital N nonsense, and like
Mhm.
the every time he and River, it I felt like how Scott feels whenever he sees Ten and Rose together. Like they're so like smug, and like I don't know, like the vibes were weird. And I liked the second part of this a lot more because I feel like there was less of that. And it was actually like, oh, like we're digging into like who, like the silence and like the mystery and you know
the second part feels like a legitimate episode, whereas
Yeah.
like the first episode just feels like a cocksure rooster, just like
yeah.
let's check this out. Like, come on, ladies. And it's just like that's like the whole episode's vibe, you know?
Which I think like I think that they probably felt like they deserved it because like
Yeah.
if they're opening a brand new season of Doctor Who where it's like the most popular it has ever been, like that, I get that. But I think on like a rewatch it kind of like,
It's a little obnoxious.
Yeah.
Like the how did both of you like the hello sweetie moment where we get to it's like kind of 2019 Marvel where you kind of start to see the moments where they want you to applaud,
Mhm.
where we get I wore a Stetson, now Stetsons are cool, and then immediately after that Stetson gets shot off
Undercut.
camera. It's River looking really super cool, and she has like the gun in the holster because we're in the West. She goes, "Hello, sweetie," and that it feels like they're doing the curtain call first almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of pause for applause moments in this first episode.
Mhm.
Was that cringy this time around, or do you remember working it for you in 2011?
I'm sure it worked for me in 2011 because it had been like 9 months or something, 6 months,
Right.
4 months, 5 months since I'd seen these characters. So I was excited for the show to be back, but like, yeah, at what cost?
Mhm. Yeah, everyone kind of feels it's not as bad as like they're a caricature of themselves, but like it feels like it's turned to 11, you know what I mean?
No, yeah.
Right.
Everyone
Right.
is everyone is like so extra.
Yes. Very extra.
It's like they're the Disneyland versions of
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like super exaggerated, and I don't know if I like that.
But going back to what you said, where like there's stuff in the episode 2 that doesn't bother you as much as it does in episode 1. Perfect example for that for me is like, River shooting that Stetson off of his head, and me being like, I don't like that. I don't like that she's just like shooting a gun.
Yeah.
Because it's like America, we're in America, so I'm laying to the guns. I got a gun. I'm River Song. Pew pew. And I was like, that sucks. But then like in episode 2, when she's like, when Matt's just, the doctor's just like, yeah, and this is my lady, and she shoots guns a lot. I shouldn't like that, but I kind of do. Like it just like
Yeah.
and I really liked that. Like
Yeah.
that like I liked. Yeah, I don't know. Like so, it's like it's a story full of contradictions of like don't like that, but then I like the thing that directly.
Yeah.
Falls
It's like
out
a
of
moment
that thing.
It's like a moment by moment basis whether
Yeah.
something works for you or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really weird.
It is
Yeah.
very weird. So they like hang out in the desert. And
Mhm.
they have a
At a lake.
picnic.
A lake in the desert.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really like all of the locations
Mm-hmm.
in this. It looks really cool.
It does.
And they like watch the doctor die. He gets shot by like the astronaut coming up out of the lake. And
then he shoots them mid regeneration.
Yeah.
Right.
So then they're kind of like regrouping, trying to figure it out, and then like because like during the conversation we find out the doctor is like 200 years. 200 years have passed for the doctor since the last time Amy has seen him.
He's 1100.
Yeah, instead of like 900.
Right.
And then
Also, a mysterious old man shows up, and he was like, "You don't know me now, but you will know me younger.
Yes.
I won't see you again, but you'll see me again."
Yeah. Take this guzzling and give the doctor a Viking funeral.
Yes.
it is very
He's like,
Mad
"Well,
Max.
See you later. And then River is like, he had a 4 on his envelope, and I have a 2, and you have a 3. So like, what's number 1? Who has the number 1?
Who does the doctor trust more than anyone else in the universe?
Because clearly these are ranked.
Right. God. Aside from the fact that like the doctor does not trust himself.
Right.
But,
yeah.
so 11 shows up. This is like a younger version of him. And they all decide that like, oh, because it's his future, he can't know what's going on. So we have to like just kind of lie to him. I think that's an aspect I don't like about this too. I don't like when they lie to each other, you know?
Mm-hmm. They keep secrets from each other.
Yeah.
I don't like this because it's couched in the whole like River Song spoilers thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm just like, I don't think that applies to this, guys. Like, there's clearly something going on, and not for nothing, but it's like, again, not to like, I don't know, not to like really hammer home the shittiness, the absolute shittiness of Wedding of River Song, but like, he's gonna fucking find out that he's gonna die anyway. So like,
yeah,
why are we just like pulling this out, this secret? Like, it feels like bad mystery box writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what is it adding? And then like the doctor catches it. Then the moment where he's like, "Don't try and play games with me, you fucking little idiot babies that I keep for my amusement. Don't ever think for a second." You get like, "Oh, okay, we forgot this is part of your vibe."
I know. I like when he gets like angry, like randomly. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So they go to 1969. That's like the clue that they're given. And the doctor ends up landing in the Oval Office. And they get involved in like they're like the president keeps getting like a phone call from some unknown number, like an unknown caller. It's like a child. And the doctor like figures out where all of this is like coming from. It's coming from around like NASA in Florida. So then they like check out this warehouse, I guess, that's at like the intersection of these, like the street name, like these 3 streets that the little girl is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We get our first glimpse of the silence in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some spooky nonsense with that. And then the episode ends with I mean, like,
yeah, we were further along than we thought. I thought because the first look we get at the silence is in the bathroom. With
yeah,
the lady
I forgot.
Who thinks it's a Star Trek
that.
mask.
Yeah,
in the White House, who gets
'cause
absolutely like eviscerated by the silence.
That poor woman.
Yeah, turns into black goop.
I'm assuming everyone who's listening to this has seen this episode.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
like the broad strokes thing is like the episode ends with Amy shooting at the astronaut suit, and we like are kind of finding out in the middle of this action that like the little girl is in the astronaut suit.
Right.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Worth noting, back at the Oval Office, one of the Secret Service agents, Carl Peterson, I believe his name was, is played by none other than Chuck Awuji, who we would go on to see in Peacemaker, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And love him to pieces. He's a brilliant actor, but he follows a tradition that sometimes when you have British actors play, he just looks so British.
Yeah. Everybody in this does. There's I have mixed feelings of this all the American stuff going on in this, because I'm like, I'm watching this and I was like, this is all just like stuff they got from movies. Like none of this is based on reality whatsoever.
Mhm.
And like these American accents are mostly terrible, and all of these people, all of these Americans are the most British guys I've ever seen in my life. And so it's just like, oh, okay, so this is how the Brits felt watching Austin Powers. Like you're like, this is like their version of that, of like American, their American version of that.
I did like the gag where 11 is kind of like he's like got his feet up on the desk of the Oval Office, and he's just like, I just appeared in here and like blah blah blah. Are you really gonna shoot me? And then River's just like, they're Americans, and then he immediately is just like, oh shit, like so that
Right.
like that still unfortunately like works for me.
Or in Day of the Moon, when you got Patterson being like you can't kill me, like welcome to America, bitch, is like pops him,
Yeah,
just blows him away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to like moment by moment, there are like moments in this where I am like, I do like this era a little bit. Like, you know, when the doctor's like, I need this, and I need this, and I need 13 Jammy Dodgers and a pot of coffee and a fez. And you're like, okay, like that makes me smile.
It is good. It is good. But yeah, and I like all the spooky vibes in the like orphanage or whatever, wherever they are. Yeah.
That's part 2.
The orphanage?
Yeah.
I thought it was the end of part 1. Where are they at the end of part 1?
They're in like the tunnel system under
Area
the warehouse.
Kind of.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, part 2's better. Oh yeah. We I guess this is plot relevant. We get the first like Amy, like shortly before Amy shoots a gun at a child. Amy tells
her own
the doctor,
child.
Yeah, Amy tells
not
the
just any child, her own child.
Amy tells the doctor that she's pregnant.
She's got a gun.
Yes.
She's got a gun. Oh my god.
Something I forgot. I wanted to get both of you guys' opinions on, and listeners as well. Something I completely forgotten about that is very particular to this era of the show. When I was a little girl,
yeah,
I had an imaginary friend, and then
the
that
little intro.
I couldn't take it.
So crazy.
They also like Max also has this show in a slightly different format. I think it's at the like 25 frames per second versus the like 24 frames per second of like American television. Like so it has that like that slight mild soap opera quality. It's not like all the way to the soap opera, but for some reason that's how Max decided to encode these episodes. And so it's like, it can be really off-putting sometimes.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think you were referencing the Eye Patch Lady, first appearance of the Eye Patch Lady.
Madame Kevorkian.
Yeah, Eye Patch Lady. I refuse to call her by her name. Refuse.
Say my name.
She deserves none of my respect, Nick. None of it.
But I got it right though, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
No. It's I either call her Eye Patch Lady or I would call her like the epitome of all of Moffat's fetishes. Just in the shape of a woman.
Final boss fetish.
Yeah. Just like a bossy brunette over the age of 40.
God. This is the final boss.
Yeah.
Hello, Steven.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
Yeah, part 2, Day of the Moon. I had forgotten about the time skip. So yeah, we come back to Team TARDIS, like kind of in media res. It's like 3 months later, they're on the run. They have like Sharpied like tally marks all over them. And they appear to be like killed by agent. I guess he's still working for like the government. So like the agent that we're introduced to in the first part, and
Mark
then
Sheppard.
like they build a really high-tech box and they have like, I don't know. So Canton is like working with the doctor and they're trying to like get intelligence about the silence. And it's not a invasion because they seem to be like fully entrenched here, so like they're working undercover and like trying to figure out what's going on and not get caught by these aliens that you can't remember. And then they like split up. So Amy and Canton go to the orphanage, the creepy orphanage, where all the silents are, and then Rory is with the doctor. And
there's a cut part out of this second part of the story that they ended up cutting from it. That is like a very Moffat-y joke, which is like so 11 has grown this beard, this raggedy horrible beard that looks like he shaved a bunch of rats and stuck the hair all over his face and into the shape of a beard, and so of course the idea was going to be that like when he got out of there, he was going to be like, oh, I have a beard now. Beards are cool. And I feel like somebody was just like, you know what? I think this is one too many, Moffat. We just got to let this one go. But the idea was like, he's handcuffed when he's a prisoner. And like when he gets out, River was going to refuse to like undo his handcuffs. Like there was going to be a whole sequence where they're like running away and he was still going to be handcuffed, and he's like, unhandcuff me. And she was like, we don't have time, you know? And like, just like the whole thing. So they have to do the whole thing where he's still handcuffed. And at the end, when they go back to the TARDIS or wherever it is they go, he was like, okay, now you can take off my handcuffs. And she was like, not yet. And then she pulls out a razor and like,
oh my God,
because she's going to like shave his beard. His like stupid beard that he loves so much. But yeah, they cut that whole thing. But I was like, yeah, that's very Moffat-y. But I feel like that would just been like too much seasoning on this one. I think. I don't know.
They flirt so much already.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember what River's doing, honestly. I just watched this one like a few hours ago.
Mostly she's like just reckoning out loud with the fact that like, you know, one day it's going to be the end of our story and we're going to meet at the end of the circle, and then all the good times are over and only the bad times are coming, and then I got to tell you guys all my secrets, but today's not that day. So blah 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 blah.
Yeah. And Rory's like, "Oh,
all
yeah?
right. If today's not the day, then shut the fuck up."
Well, all right. Yeah, okay. Well enough then.
Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, no, I think when I think of this two-parter, I think the stuff with the silence, like in the orphanage, and like the skin implant, like messaging machine, like the blinking light is, I think that's really well done.
That scene on the TARDIS where Canton is like learning about the silence and like with the bit where he's like straightening the doctor's bow tie and he's like, why did I do that? And then he played the recording back for him. They're like, that's why.
I think the editing of that sequence is really clever because it like cuts like very suddenly.
Yeah. I think the thing that I'm most sad about though with this story is that Canton never came back.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a cool character.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would have been cool to see him again in like the 70s or something.
Bring him back.
Yeah, bring him back.
I liked the doctor fixing the Apollo 11 shuttle.
Mm-hmm.
The reason, like, there's always a bit left over, isn't there? You know, like that's fun.
Like a IKEA desk. That's good.
And then when the doctor gets caught by the NASA scientists and they're holding him in like one of the studies, and Nixon has to come in and like, boys, you know, this doctor fellow's doing America's work. And
yeah.
Like, boy, Mr. President. Rory has this really cute, fun moment where he's like, America salutes you. And then just leaves.
Yeah. There's that also that really weird moment where I think this might have been in part 1, so this just adds to the annoyance of part 1. But there's that weird moment where River is like, oh yeah, like Nixon was president, Watergate, Vietnam, some good stuff too. And he's like, not enough good stuff. And he's like, she calls him a hippie.
Mhm.
And I was like, what the fuck is this? What is?
And then but he calls her an archaeologist, as if that explains her.
Yeah, I know. And like, I was just like, River, wait a minute, River's pro Nixon? Like what? Like, I didn't like him as a person, but I didn't mind his politics. Like, what are we doing?
Red flag, red flag.
Yeah.
Well, I
What are
guess
we- what are we
okay.
doing, guys?
If you examine River up to this point, she's like from like the year 5000 something. So
Mhm.
like, it's like it's like history to her, I guess. But like,
Mhm.
whatever.
You believe in climate change?
Yeah.
Nixon.
So we have the first appearance of Eye Patch Lady, and the doctor, like they capture a silence, and then Canton is talking to it, and the silence is basically like, like, we've been here for millennia, blah blah blah. We're like manipulating humanity from the shadows. You should kill us all when you see us. And then that ends up being the solution to the episode, where they like the moon landing is happening and they intercut this footage of this silence saying this into the moon landing footage, because like millions and millions of people are watching it as it's happening. And then they just, the implication is that humanity like brutally slaughters these aliens over the course of like,
Keyword implication. This is actually kind of one of the darker endings in Who, if you think about it,
Yes.
of like, because it plays like this triumphant, swelling moment of people all over the world are watching the silence being like, you should kill us on sight. And then I was like, exactly like Cass said, like, haha. Now, throughout history, billions of people will savagely like beat these things to death as soon as they see them. Until eventually, I guess decades later, the last one gets like beaten to death anonymously.
yeah.
Well, I think that's the threat, but the implication is that they would just leave. Because why would they stick around?
Yeah, you'd
If
think.
that's-
Stubbornly stay.
Yeah, I don't think they would stubbornly stay on Earth.
There's like 3
they're-
left.
They don't strike me as the fuck around, find out type. they strike me as the let's get the fuck out of here then type.
There's like one silence just like at a VFW hall or something. fellas, wait.
Everybody in the place just like pulls out like heavy chains and
Mhm.
you just start
Nice.
wrapping it around their hands.
Breaks a
I
beer
mean,
bottle.
There's kind of like a scene of that happening where like these people are in a bar and they like turn and see a silence and they all just kind of menacingly stand up out of their seats, and I'm like, oh no, that's not a good time for that alien.
Yeah, it's true.
He's kind of playing on our baser, like our mob mentality in a kind of an ugly way, which
Yeah.
is dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And the doctor and company kind of lose the thread of this little girl that they were supposed to be finding. And they contemplate kind of finding her, but then the doctor's like, or we could just run away and have cool adventures. Let's do that. So there's another time jump. And then 6 months later, the little girl is like wandering the streets of New York City by herself. And she says she's dying, and then she begins to regenerate.
So the implication being that the little girl died because her mother shot her to death, right?
No, because she escapes the
Suit.
suit.
Uh-huh.
And it was like protecting her and like giving like
Oh.
there was like life support and like food and whatever. So like this child was not taught to like do anything, so she's just like starving to death.
Oh. Okay.
which is also
Whoa.
very bleak.
I just figured she got shot by her mom, and then, like, teleported to New York or something.
Because
I was like,
there's
"Whoa."
there's like a crack in the glass of the astronaut suit, but like it doesn't like penetrate the suit.
Oh, okay, all right.
I hate to be critical of young actors, but in particularly the guy playing the unhoused person and the young actor playing River was really when I noticed like the British accents trying to pop out.
Mhm.
But also just because of like the lines were clearly written like in a British vernacular. And so, yeah, it was really interesting to hear as an American of like, oh, this is what this feels like.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was so excited about that cliffhanger, and I was like so hyped, but you know, I didn't believe everyone who was like, oh, that must be River, and I was like, but why would that be River? Like, that's stupid. Like, no, I don't. It couldn't possibly be River. It must be something else way cooler than that. But
something I assume none of. Yeah, so you kind of talked about how it didn't hit the same way now.
Yeah,
returning to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before that epic cliffhanger episode out, we get kind of a dangling of a plot thread of throughout this episode, Amy is kind of sequestered mentally and like they're trying to save her.
Mm-hmm.
And Rory has his little communicator up and she's like, oh, I miss your stupid long face. And I hate how I'll never forget how you fell into my life from the sky in your blue box, and you just made my life so much better. And Rory's like, "Oh, he's talking about a doctor, ain't she? My girl don't want me nothing, no way." And then later, when they rescue Amy, she's like, "No, you stupid fucking beta idiot! I was talking about you, not the doctor."
Yeah. I'm also just like really sick of that at this point too.
Yeah.
Like him just not believing that Amy loves him. And I'm like, rightfully so. Like, she fucking really ran him ragged in series 5. And had to guard her for 1,000 years for her to like fucking believe that like maybe he's pretty cool or something. I don't know. But I don't know, all of that, like, will they, won't they, love triangle bullshit. Ugh.
Yeah.
Because
like you would think that, because I had completely forgotten about that like lingering whatever, and you would think that it would just be like wrapped up because like, hello, like that's the person that she marries, like, you know. And I know that whatever. I also this episode starts the Amy not having any agency over herself all season that I don't like at all. And I'm sure we'll get into that more in the future.
We're in the thick of it now.
Yeah.
Like, it's, yeah. And then the final scene, because even that stuff carries over into on the deck of the TARDIS. Amy tells the doctor again, like, hey, I'm pregnant, and I don't want to tell Rory because blah, blah, blah. And Rory's like spying on her with the communicator. It's like, you dummy, are you spying on me? And he's like, yeah. And then the doctor has a thing where it's like the TARDIS has this monitor of like pregnant or not pregnant, and it can't decide. I'm like, oh, so it's worse than a real pregnancy test that we have on Earth then.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, all the mystery box shit this season is bad. But it'll be interesting to see how the Clara mystery box stuff, revisiting that, feels.
Compares.
Because I feel like I'm going to like it better, and I'm going to be defending that while I'm arguing against this bullshit. But we'll see.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah. All right. Well, next time though, a completely different era for Stephen Moffat.
Also a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to Capaldi, this time with The Caretaker. A story that is unfortunately full of some fun stuff and a lot of like, but mostly like just not very good, unfortunately. So yeah, but we'll talk about that next week. And then that'll be that. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you then. Bye bye.